treats, as usual, because I'm not allowed to come without treats. May I say it's so exciting to be back. I know it's been a couple of years for me. Someone's in a costume over there. I appreciate that. I love that. Anyway, so let me start throwing some of these out and see who can catch. You got your baseball skills going? You got your skills?
From New Orleans, and I got a place there, so that's why I'm here today, because I got to go to the Super Bowl. But here we go. Let's start. I think it is when you go for it. So I always want to, when I don't go for something, or I don't speak up, or I don't say something I wanted to say that was in my heart, or that was an honest thing, and I just clammed up, that's when I get disappointed in myself. And there's a quote that I have in the sequel, it's not the sequel, it's coming out, Valentine's Day, I just turned the script in, where that's true to my life, where this character says, I was shy growing up, and I had a dance teacher say to me, when you don't feel you have power, you don't feel things are wrong, and you feel very small, it's like being on stage and you're in the dark. And when you're on stage, if you're a performer of any kind, even me up here, you automatically know to go find your light. Even when you're 5 years old in kindergarten, they know to find their light. And she said to me, just remember that in life, when you don't feel yourself, you feel powerless, step to your right and find your light. And that should help you, metaphorically, remember to step into your light. You have just as much right being on this stage and in your light. There's a special spot for you. There's a light made just for you, and to always stand in it. So that's... Thank you. Keep up the good things. Sweating like a horrid shirt, as I say, for quite some time. Because I majored in theater, and I liked all of theater. I directed, I acted, I did. The only thing I can't do is sew. There's no sewing. But I like all of theater. I like performance. I like moving people and investing in myself and respecting their time that they're giving me. So I could have done anything in theater and probably been happy. But I lived in Los Angeles, and again, speaking of things I didn't do, I was too afraid to move to New York. That seemed too daunting and big. And unless you go to New York, you're really not going to have a theater career. So that's sort of how I segued into screenwriting. And even then, the only reason I couldn't segue into directing is I had no experience with cameras and directing. But writing was always something I was doing anyway, and I just kept honing my craft and realized, this is a good thing. You like this. So that's how I got into it. As far as writing something with dialogue, I think the best thing you can do is listen to what people say and don't say. There's a lot people aren't saying at any given time. And they're just telling it to you through their body, through this and that. People rarely say what they mean. And that's sort of how you have to write. You have to write. It's like, you write again. It's like Xena is a perfect, example of subtext. And even though that's a big code word here, there's so much subtext in it. That's the way to write. It keeps the audience invested. What do they really want to say that they're not going to say, that they haven't said yet? And so it's playing those things. And the best way to write is to listen to people talk. Now I'm saying exactly what I mean. I think the thing to remember too is there's a whole loom of life, which I wanted to point out. You can reset your own life, but you can't reset everybody else's in another sense, in a bigger sense. Because whatever they were going to do, they're still going to happen that you can't affect. And that was sort of the theme of the episode. Like, even though you think you've reset Xena and Gabrielle, and now they've never met, so they went on the path they were going to, they still meet each other. See, so he couldn't affect that because that was always written on their, in their lives. So that's the bigger theme, is no one person can really affect the greater sense. Whatever you believe in is going to work itself out. Even if you mess with one strand, it's going to find a way to get what it wants. And it will, and it did. You know, he still gets killed by somebody close to him betrays him. That was inevitable for his life, whether it was Brutus or Alti. So that's how it's going to happen. Gabrielle and Xena were going to meet and fall in love, whether she was on, if it was on the road, or if I'm now an empress and I'm a playwright. That was meant to be. So that's the way to think of that episode, is certain things are meant to be, regardless of how much I was going to say the F word, but I was reprimanded. No matter how much you screw it up, it's going to happen eventually. And of course he's a little stupid. I mean, when Rob and I, you know that Rob and I worked out a whole movie. I mean, we have a whole pitch. We went in and sat in rooms and wrote it down and kicked this out, kicked that out, and then he kicked me and I kicked him. And then finally we had a pretty solid treatment. Maybe I should just tell it to everybody right now. Yeah. But we did have the whole story worked out, how it would work, and some really creative ideas. And I found a way, because it's almost like intertwining again, is to get almost everybody we love back in it. Because a lot of those storylines that people shouldn't mix. You have the Roman section, then you have the Greek section, and then you did have different worlds where people were in. So trying to get them to all intertwine again, the Amazons, and it's a little bit of a challenge, but we got most everybody in sort of this journey odyssey to get them back together. And because you don't want them together really fast, you want that moment, the hunt and the search to get them together. So it became much of a sort of a road pick, ancient history road pick, ancient, but no cars in that one.